Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess of Victory Nikke video, and we're finally doing an updated tier list for 2024 at the end of January. So this has been a long time coming. I did my initial tier list last year, sometime in, I want to say like August or something like that. A lot has happened in the game since then. And so you can see right here, this is what the tier list looked like in its last iteration. And then in a second, I'm going to show you how things shuffled around with the existing units that were out at that time. And then we'll add all the new units that came out since that initial tier list was built. So a couple of things to keep in mind on my tier list. If you haven't watched the first version, I'd encourage you to watch that video. It is a link in the description below. Check that out. But also some other things that I should explain to you so you know how my tier lists work. This is a holistic tier list that looks at all different types of modes in the game. And so whatever that unit is good at, whether it's really good in raids or it's really good in special arena or whatever, it could get high on the tier list or low on the tier list because of that. Units that are really good at everything, of course, will get extra points even for that. I will talk about each unit and say whether it's, up here on high on the tier list because it's good in PvP or it's good in raids or whatever the case is. I'll mention that for each specific unit. Another thing to keep in mind is that this is a reality-based tier list, okay? So what does that mean? I am not making a tier list based on my favorite units or what I hope units are going to be or what I wish units were going to be. I don't copy anyone else's tier list or put units high or low based on what someone says on Reddit. This is based off of my own testing, what everybody in my union is using, what I see the high-ranked players using in Arena. I look at graphs and spreadsheets of what the top-ranked players are using to get in like top 50, things like that, okay? So this is all very evidence-based and real-world usage. So with that in mind, let's take a look and see what has actually changed. So here is the new version, and you can see a lot of things kind of shuffled around, but I'll talk about you can see something's kind of moved up and down even within their own tier. So things further to the left are going to be a little bit higher and things towards the right are going to be lower within that tier. But let's talk about the things that actually jumped tiers. So the first thing is AdMe. AdMe goes all the way down here into D. Now, AdMe was useful because of her quick reload, but there's just so many other things to do now. Honestly, that burst 2 slot is really crowded, and so she's just like not nearly as important now, or she wasn't even super important before, but you know what I mean. Emma also goes down to D. Emma used to be quite useful in Arena, but it's just, again, we've gotten a lot of new units, and so she's just like not as usable anymore. Then you have Sakura actually goes up to C. I think this is more a result of, kind of other people moving down relative to her rather than her going up. You can do the strategy for train with Ludmilla to get through it that way if you're a newer player. And then, in some very niche situations, she is actually useful in raids. She has the cooldown reduction. And so I think she's actually gotten a little bit more valuable than even previously. Yulha goes all the way up to B. Okay, so Yulha was a unit that was like super hyped on launch and was really highly ranked and then dropped like a stone. She's still used on the one-shot Snow White team for interception, but it's just a very niche case, right? But recently she's proven to be even better in raids and sort of a common support for Snow White, even in like solo raid situations. So she's actually going up quite a bit from her previous evaluation. Milk goes down here to E. She wasn't terribly high before, but honestly, she's just like even less useful now, unfortunately. Epinel goes up to C. Now, she is a unit that is kind of getting more and more, like I always thought she was useful in the tower, but she's proven to be even more useful. We still do not have any really good AoE option for Missilus, and I still have her on my Missilus tower team, and she's just good in that situation. And so she definitely deserves to come up here to the C rank or C tier. Then we have Volume. Now, Volume is another unit that was always pretty good, but honestly is just even better. It's amazing how long, even over a year after initial launch, she's still being used in solo raids and even union raids. She's like always going to be your third burst one, almost every single time. She's gotten even more valuable with Snow White, even more valuable with the schoolgirls and with 2B sometimes, and there's just even more reasons to use her. She's got the cooldown reduction, of course, as always, and so she's going up here into the A tier. Honestly, I may have even had her a little bit too low previously. Aquamarine Helm goes up to A. Again, we're just getting the cooldown reduction, and she's just, proven to be useful here in raids all the time. Dola also goes up to A, and again, I think these are a little bit more that other older units are getting kind of worse and worse in comparison, as opposed to these suddenly getting better. But Dola, for a launch unit, is just being super, super useful still. Almost as useful as Volume, and she's going to go up here actually just a little bit ahead of Aquamarine Helm. And then we have Noise. Noise is going up into B. Noise is still solid in Arena, and honestly is solid in solo raids. Like, if there's ever like a 4th or 5th team of mine that just like needs a little extra healing, or sometimes you just need to manipulate the boss's targeting with taunt, Noise is still pretty solid at this, and so she's going up to B. The next one we're moving is Privity. Now, Privity was already evaluated very high for me, but I'm moving up her to S, okay? From the A tier, she's going up here to S, and she's still like the second best burst 3 in Arena, and she's now just proven to be even more useful as a support on raid and Union Raid and solo raid teams. And I don't know, she's another launch unit that is just still extremely good, and I think we've gotten even more primary DPSs that can benefit from her, and so I'm moving her up here to the S tier. Himeno goes down to E. She used to fill kind of a niche situation for snipers, very, very niche, but honestly, it's just like you're kind of memeing now if you're trying to get that to work, so she's going down here to E. Biscuit goes up to B. She is, I think, becoming more and more of a staple in Arena and is also in your raid teams here and there. Vesti goes down to C. There was some kind of like corner case shenanigans you could do with Vesti and with Isabel to really cycle through your bursts and do some really crazy stuff. And she used to be one of the best burst 3 options for the Elysian Tribe Tower, and she's still like okay there, but I think she's just a little bit worse. We've gotten some better options recently. Then we have Noah moving up to A. Honestly, maybe Noah should have been in A even before, but Noah is just a staple in Arena. She's going to be on every single special Arena team, and she just negates Scarlet in Arena. And you can even use her sometimes against certain bosses. Like you could sort of like cheese the Kraken or whatever that boss was with her, so you can do some kind of cool things. And yeah, mostly she's up here because of Arena though, and she's just still extremely good. Another launch unit that's really hanging up there. Okay, next we have Guilty going down to C, and Guilty is a unit that was like really valuable when she first came out, and everybody said that she was like the best liberation unit, and she's still okay, but it's getting harder and harder to justify just like kind of a primary DPS in the burst 2 slot. And the fact that she doesn't pull from final attack, it's just from attack, she's just, I don't know, she's becoming less and less relevant. And maybe if we get a really good shotgun, when the shotgun team becomes a thing, she'd be on it. But even then, I feel like you probably don't actually want to be using her on the ideal shotgun team. We'll see what happens soon, maybe. But yeah, we're moving her down to the C category. Rupee used to be like the queen of burst 2s, but I think, it's getting less and less, justifiable to use her as well. And so we're going to move her down to the B tier. She's still decent. Honestly, you'll still randomly see her pop up on like a high-ranking solo raid team. So it's not like she's useless, but she's, just, you're going to be using her less and less frequently, but she is still pretty flexible and can do some solid damage. Helm is also going down to B. Helm is still somewhat useful. She will still make it onto an occasional raid team. She can still be a support for Snow White, but it's just we've gotten more and more healers since the last tier list, and so you just don't need her as often. She's still decent. She's here in the B tier, but she's going to go down a bit. Then we have Nihilister. Nihilister is also going to go down to the B tier. Like I said, Nihilister is another, like heavy DPS, just pure DPS in Burst 2. It's getting harder and harder to justify. I think she is the best DPS in Burst 2 that isn't any kind of support or defender. You can still see her occasionally on a solo raid team. She's still obviously super valuable in the Pilgrim Tribe Tower. And she's actually decent against a few bosses here and there in raids that you'll see. She is strong, but I think she's going down here into B. Then we have Maxwell. Maxwell is going to go down to B or down to B. Boy, she hasn't dropped that much. Maxwell used to be like the god, right? So she did really good DPS on her own. She was the best support for Snow White. She was the best support for Alice. And she was just really pretty god tier. She was extremely good if you play on manual play. High level players use her all the time. She's just going to go down a little bit to S. And honestly, this isn't even a case of her moving down, but we've gotten some really busted stuff recently that is now kind of taking over the god tier. And so Maxwell is going to move into the S tier, which is still extremely good. Rapunzel is also going to move down to the S. This is another situation where just some of the super busted stuff has come out and taking over the god tier up here. And so, you know, she's kind of quote-unquote moving down to the S tier. She's also still like one of the best units in Arena, so she's just gonna stay up here. She's one of the best units for pushing campaign, and yeah, you'll even see her on raid teams occasionally. Like, she's really good on raids sometimes on like a Snow White team. You can still do some like invincible shenanigans with her and Nero. She's still extremely good, but just not in that god tier anymore. All right, Snow White. Now, this is how you know this tier list is real. I'm not just like blowing smoke. So Snow White is going down to the S tier. Again, used to be in that like super busted god tier. But, you know, in the last solo raid, she was no longer even one of the best options. A lot of people did still use her on the 5th team for like the top 50 players for that, but she was pretty hard to use, and it just felt like she was no longer like really like the queen of damage anymore. Again, still really good, and she is still the best unit to use in some situations. If a unit has a lot of parts, or you know, you need the Pierce, she can still one-shot things in interception. Very strong. My favorite unit. She's still the real goddess of victory, but we just have some even more busted options now that can do damage even more easily, and so she's going to be here in the S tier. Okay, we have one more changed note here for older units, which is Miranda. Now, Miranda is going down here to B. She used to be up here because she was just like the best option to use with Snow White. She's still a good option for Snow White, and is even, you know, decent on her own. You're going to use her probably in the Elysian Tribe Tower. But now, most of the time, you're probably going to be using volume with Snow White. And so Miranda's just slightly less valuable. And so she's going to go down there to the B tier. Okay. So that's all of the changes that happened. If you're liking this video so far, please give me a sub. I'm an official Nikke content creator. I'm trying to get to 3,500 subs, and I'd really appreciate the support. Even if you watch my videos all the time, double check, because a lot of people just don't even realize they're not subbed. So it would really help me out if you would give me a sub if you're enjoying the videos. But let's move on to the brand new units that have come out since I made the last tier list. So we're going to start out with Tia and Naga, okay? So Tia and Naga, they are just some of the best units possible, right? Honestly. I'll just talk about them both at the same time here. They're both going to go up here into the S tier, okay? And we'll put Naga just slightly above Tia because I think she's a little bit better if I had to choose one. And we're going to put them just below the bunnies. The bunnies, I think, are still a little easier to use. You get a little bit more survivability. They're a little bit more universal. They're way better in Arena, whereas the schoolgirls are pretty much trash in Arena. And Noir is still going to stay up there because she is the only one that really, she functions the best on her own, we'll say that. But anyway, Tia and Naga are going to be on every high tier raid team. They're going to be in your solo raids, your union raids. They're even pretty good for pushing campaign. They've recently been really good in the overclock mode of Simulation Room. They can just do massive damage with the core damage. Even Tia can survive pretty well with her taunt. You can quick charge with her. They are the best supports for Snow White. They're also extremely good with Alice, Maxwell, Red Hood. They're just amazing units, honestly. So they definitely deserve to be up here in the S tier. The next unit we're going to talk about is an SR. So that's going to be Pascal, one of our collaboration units from Nier. And Pascal is going to go into the E tier. And we'll put Pascal, I think, right below Frima here. Pascal actually has some pretty good healing options. Honestly, like if you're a newer account and you just don't have some of the high tier healers, Pascal might be all the way up here in like the B tier for you. But there's just a lot of better options if you do have more units to work with. But a cool unit. Kind of a high E tier, I guess we'll say, if that counts for anything. Okay, our next one is going to be 2B. 2B is Bootylicious, and 2B is going to go up here as the queen of B tier. It's kind of funny how that turned out. I'm almost tempted to put her into A tier, but realistically, I think she's actually down here in the B tier. It's sort of rare to actually see her on a raid team nowadays. Occasionally she will do it. She does have applications. She can work as a lightning rod for, pairing with like Scarlet or Guillotine or, honestly, any of your like really high DPS units that you're going to have on a raid, because her buffs make her attack so high that a lot of the enemies will just only attack her because they target the unit with the highest attack. She can even be somewhat functional in Arena and is extremely tanky there. So she has her uses. She was actually kind of a really useful unit for me on the recent Material H raid. But I think B tier, like the highest B tier is a good place for 2B. And then I'm telling you, I didn't do this arbitrarily, but our next unit is A2, and she's going to go at the top of the A tier. So A2 is just really, really powerful in certain situations. She might be literally the best unit for those zone control stages where you're trying to keep the gauge in the blue half, because she just like hits the entire screen with every single attack and wipes out mobs like crazy. She's good for pushing hard campaign in some situations, and she is very good against certain bosses on raids. So you don't see her all the time, but she's still pretty relevant. When she's good, she's really, really good. Don't forget to pair her with Blanc. It's probably her best pairing, but you can also pair her with Rapunzel and get very good results that way as well. And with a highly invested Marshana, you can even get that to work too. Any unit that, or any boss that has a ton of parts, she just annihilates the train. Anyway, don't use it against Modernia because you'll get bad results there. The next unit we're going to talk about is Marshana. Marshana is becoming, or maybe not even becoming, almost when she launched, she is just kind of a staple burst 2 unit. If you have a really OP account and you're really trying to min-max your damage, she might not make your raid team if you just like don't need a healer, but honestly, realistically, for 99% of people, even if you think you're a high rank player, she's probably going to be on one of your raid teams. She is decent in Arena. She pairs extremely well with Privity in the quick reload team when you're using like Summer Anise and people like that. She's really, really solid. Honestly, she's super useful, and I was so happy when I finally actually pulled her. Just a staple, really good support and healer. Okay, our next one is going to be Curie. Now, Curie, she's a fun character. I like her, but unfortunately, she's going to go down here in the D tier. It's really hard to justify. I mean, she's a burst 3, which, you want a strong DPS in burst 3, unless they're an amazing support like Privity or something like that. And she buffs defenders, but she's not even really worth using with 2B. And I don't know. Maybe one day she'll be useful, but for right now, she's in the D tier. Okay, our next one is going to be Innocent Snow White. We're getting to some pretty exciting ones here. Innocent White or Small White is going to go into the B tier. Small White is really good. For a free unit, honestly, she's pretty amazing. I was surprised at how good she was. And she was actually an MVP for me on a recent raid. She completely trivialized the Material H ads, the ones that would get the instant shield or almost instant shield and you had to wipe them out. She just constantly destroys everything on the screen. She's also really good in those zone control stages, similar to A2. She's also pretty good for pushing campaign. So yeah, not like the most OP unit, but very, very solid, and I think deserves to be up here in the high B tier. Then we have Red Hood. Red Hood is insane. I just Red Hood was good before they buffed her. Red Hood is absolutely bonkers since the buff. I mean, I don't need to tell you this. You guys know that. We see Red Hood all over the place. Red Hood puts up insane damage. I did a full review video on Red Hood. She was just the strongest DPS. She's good in basically every single situation. She has amazing flexibility as either a burst 1, 2, or 3. She's good for pushing campaign. She's good in solo raid and union raid. She's good in arena. Probably the third best burst 3 attacker, maybe fourth best. Definitely top 2 unit as far as just all-out damage against bosses. She's good against bosses with ads, solo bosses, bosses with parts, bosses with cores. What is Red Hood not good at? She even looks amazing. You guys know I love the redheads, and Red Hood is one of the best. So she is going here into the God tier, 100% deserved. Red Hood is going to be the highest ranked God tier here, even above Leader. She's just, I don't know. She's absolutely busted. Okay, the next unit is going to be Tuva, and Tuva is a pretty good buffer, honestly. It's just we don't have the right units to buff with her. So I'm going to put her into the C tier. I could see her potentially moving up to B tier if we get another really solid shotgun DPS. Maybe. I think we all know. She's really good with Sugar. Just Sugar needs that partner. So yeah, Tuve does some solid stuff, but she's definitely a niche role player and needs another person she can support really well. So she's going to go here into the C tier. Okay, then we have our recent winter units, and we have Snow Mika here, and she is going to go into the D tier, unfortunately. Now, I don't know, I almost wanted to put her into C tier, but there's, I think, realistically much more useful units in the C tier. I have yet to really see her do anything. She has some decent abilities, but, if it happens, then I'll move her up. As of now, she isn't doing much, even though it seems like she kind of could have potential. So, that's all I can really say about her. On the other hand, our other winter unit, Winter Ludmilla, is one of our best DPSs in the game, and she's going to go up here into the S tier. Winter Ludmilla is really, 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 really strong. She's going to go, I think, just below Summer Anise. Yeah. They do very similar damage, honestly. It really just depends on what you're fighting and if you have a slightly better build on one than the other. But they're both very, very comparable. Summer Anise is one of the strongest DPS units in the game. Especially when you can use multiples of her. It's really nuts. I've done some pretty crazy stuff with co-op matches with channel members. By the way, if you want to become a channel member and support the channel directly, we have cool perks like getting to do co-op missions with me, and you get access to exclusive emojis, and stuff like that. So anyway, hit that join button if you're interested in that. But Winter Ludmilla is super, super strong. Yeah, definitely an S tier damage dealer. She's just below some of these universal supports, like the bunny girls and the schoolgirls and things like that. She is going to just go right here, just below Summer Anise. Okay. The next one is going to be Black Shadow Scarlet. And Black Shadow Scarlet, can anybody guess? Don't cheat. Leave a comment. Where do you think Black Shadow Scarlet is going to go? Black Shadow Scarlet is going to go up here into the God tier. She is amazing. She does so much damage, and she does it so easily. Like, she doesn't even need supports. Like, you can just put her on, like, any team. Even at low investment, she does incredible damage. I'm going to put her just below Red Hood. I almost want to put her above Red Hood. In a lot of cases, Black Shadow Scarlet will actually do more damage than the Red Hood, but it is somewhat situational. It could be kind of 50-50 depending on what you're fighting, what your exact builds are, but she is capable of out-damaging Red Hood. She's also a little bit worse in Arena than Red Hood, so I'm going to put her lower for that. But we're really splitting hairs here. She's just, if not the best, the second best DPS of the game, and is good in almost every situation on almost every team. She definitely deserves to be here in the God tier. She just has insane stats. Just like, she's a big stack of stats, and her modifiers are nuts. Yeah. She also looks super badass. One of the best visual designs I think we've ever had in the game as well. Okay, we only have a couple units left. So now we have Leona. Leona is also going to go in the C tier, right here next to Tuve, and we'll put her just above Tuve. I think she has slightly better buffs, and I think she's probably more of an auto-include if we ever get a super, like, real shotgun team. I mean, Tuve will probably be on there too, but I think Leona's just slightly more useful. Some of her buffs were really effective. If you guys look at my testing video of her, you can see that, like, her skills make a big difference in the amount of damage. So if shotgun teams are ever really a thing, she's probably going to go up to a higher tier as well. But definitely, like, a very specific role player. Okay, our last unit is Maran. Now, Maran is like another unit that I'm a huge fan of the design for, and I thought I was going to skip her because, well, I was going to pull for her, but I was only going to do a couple of them because, she's just not a unit that I was like, well, we're going to get some other crazy limited units or something. I don't want to dump too many resources into her. And so I did a few polls for her, and I didn't get her. And then, thanks to a viewer, they actually gave a big donation and told me to pull for her more. So I pulled for her more, and I got her. So shout out to the viewer for that. That was Orifly, and yeah, I have the best community. What can I say? But anyway, she is a super cool unit that actually turned out to be extremely good. I thought her mechanics looked really interesting, but I wasn't sure how actually strong they would be. But we're going to put her right here in the B tier. She turned out to be just, like, extremely good in Arena. Like, even with zero investment, she would just survive through insane amounts of damage. I'm still testing more with her. I can see in the future, depending on how much more relevant Arena becomes, or what else comes out, she could potentially even move up. Her only real downside is that her burst generation is pretty bad. But yeah, she's really, really strong. If you're a newer account, I could even see her making it onto some raid teams, just because being able to manipulate the boss's targeting with taunt and just how durable she is could be useful. But she's just like a legit, like, pretty top tier unit in Arena, and I wouldn't be surprised to see her on almost every special Arena team. Yeah. Okay, a couple of notes on some things that didn't change here. The one that I want to point out, or probably the two that I want to point out, are up here in the S tier. And we'll talk about Dorothy. Now, Dorothy is extremely good. I mean, clearly, she's at the very top of S tier. But I think, she's still just not as good as Leader. I mean, she was at the top of S tier before, and I just don't see any reason to put her up there anymore, even though I think maybe the quick reload team has even gotten slightly better than it had previously. But I think, she's still not quite there in that, like, super busted territory. And then for Scarlet, mostly she's staying up here because she is still the queen of Arena. She can still wipe out and one-shot an entire team in Arena, and is just, like, the best burst 3 DPS there. If we were talking about Raid damage only. She would probably go down here, honestly, like just below Summer Anise or maybe below Winter Ludmilla. Because, I mean, she's very, very strong, still would be in the S tier, but her damage has definitely fallen off. She's just not quite up there with the super, super powerful ones. But again, I am including Arena in here, and she is still the best option, so she's going to be up here next to Dorothy at the top of S tier. But just keep in mind, if you're thinking about this from a raid damage point of view only, she would actually be below Modernia, Snow White, Summer Niece, and maybe even Winter Ludmilla, probably above Winter Ludmilla. I don't know. Anyway, just wanted to do a little bit of clarification on those two units because I know that they're ones that a lot of people are using, of course, and you might have questions about why they didn't move when some of these other units did move around within their tiers. But let me know what you guys think. I'm always interested in feedback. I know this was a little bit of a longer video. Hope you enjoyed it. The game has changed a lot in like 6 months or so since I made that last tier list. We'll make another tier list eventually, of course, but I want enough things to change to actually justify doing a big change. Let me know what you disagree with, too. And let me know if there was anything really unexpected here or if you have any questions about anything. I'm all about conversation and really appreciate all of you guys watching. I will catch you guys in the next video or stream. I stream every week on Twitch and YouTube. I also have my own Discord, so link to that in the description below. It's open to the community. I'll catch you guys in the next video or stream.